Alright folks, part 2. Alright, so when you get your air horn off the carburetor, this is the first thing you're going to see. Of course, the gasket's going to be on top of it. I got that right here, as well as the gasket for your mixture control solenoid, which is this thing. And if you look close, this one's supposedly brand new. If the camera will focus on it, I don't think it will. Oh, there we go. And it's got cracks in it already. I don't think this is actually brand new like it's supposed to be. I think that they lied to me a bit. But anyway, when you do this, when you rebuild your carburetor and you get a kit, it'll come with a new one of these, so you don't have to worry about it. But I'm not doing a kit. I'm just doing my float, so I don't have one of those, which I'll get back to that later on when we get to the actual float setting of this. But you take your gasket off. You take that the gasket for your mixture control solenoid off. And there's going to be this thing right here, and this just sits on here. It's on a spring, and it just pulls up like that. And you put it in your pile right there. And this thing right here is the piston for the throttle position sensor, which when I take the top off the carburetor, it did drop, and it dropped down into my primary barrel here. It dropped into the bottom, so I had to lift the carburetor up and flip the throttle plate to get it to come out. So that's probably what happened to it the first time too when I did this, and I lost it. I probably didn't realize it fell down there, or it could fall into one of these holes as well, and be gone forever. But I probably should have mentioned it earlier, it'd be real helpful if you had a carburetor stand. I don't, and a lot of the people that watch my videos probably don't as well, because you're just fixing your cars to keep them running. You're not really going to be hot rodding or building the carburetor or anything like that. I don't know many people who would actually want to build a car like this, but I guess you'd be surprised. So a couple of boards with some towels on it will do the same thing. Here's your accelerator pump. It just pulls out of there. You got a spring in the bottom of it there with a well full of fuel. So the accelerator pump can just go on. Set that over here. I have a second one. I have another one as well that I might consider replacing with this one. I'm going to test this too, which I'll talk about later, possibly. But what you have next, what you're looking at here, is you got this here blocker plate on this, and you just pull it up. You can kind of reach your hands around here and wiggle on it until it comes up and out of there, just like that. See that? Pulls up on out. Set that off to the side. Technically you don't need that, but it's helpful. And now what you're looking at here is your mixture control solenoid plunger, which is this. You got your primary metering rods right here. They have springs on them. They're a dual end. We'll take that off. It looks like that one might have been put on wrong too, but I'll take that off. I'll get into that later. This here is your adjustment screw for your metering rods here for the mixture control solenoid. This here, I'm not going to pretend to know which way this goes in or out, which way is the adjustment, but what this is going to do is control your how much fuel that this thing is going to pulse per shot of fuel through your main jets. In other words, it's going to control how lean your car runs. And like I said, I'm not going to pretend to know which way you turn this to get it to go lean or rich, but I do know that when you take this out, this is set from the factory. And on anybody's car except for mine, you're going to want to count how many turns this thing comes out, so you can put it back in the exact amount of turns that you did when you took it out, so it's set right. This one I have no idea if it's set right, so it might cause me a problem later on down the road, but just for reference, set it right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker and mark it right there, so when I turn it around I can count how many full turns it takes for the marker to go around. So I'm going to do that quick and get back to you. This is your throttle position sensor. That plunger right there is what attaches to this rod here, and it plunges down into your valve body here for the carburetor. And there's this little dimple right there. I don't know if you can see that. I think it shows up. And that has a little thing on the bottom of your air horn here. This is your throttle position sensor indication lever, and this is what you actually adjust when you take out that plug and adjust your throttle position sensor voltage. It's adjusting how much this thing here pushes in to this thing here. So as long as you don't touch anything on the air horn, you shouldn't have to readjust that after you do this. So that's what you got there. So I'm going to take this out here and get back to you. Alright, so I got that out, and mine was 11.5 turns out. So what it did is on my little plunger here, I got a marker right there. See that silver? It's a paint marker. I use them to mark things on metal. They stick a lot better than just regular markers on there, and they don't hurt anything inside your engine. But anyway, you put this in facing out like that and turn it clockwise 11 times. That's what mine is. So as you can see, I got it out of there, and if you look at it, you'll see there ain't much to see. I lost my train of thought there, but here's your primary metering rods. You're going to want to pull these out here, and there's a spring on the bottom of it there. You're going to hold that with your finger and pull out your metering rod. See, there's a spring on it. Put that over here. You don't want to lose that spring because I don't think they come with them in the rebuild kits either. There's your second one, and I want to remember that it looks like one of these has got a coarser spring on it. See, that one right there has got a finer spring, and that one's got a coarser spring. The coarser one goes on the right side here, and the finer one goes on the left side. I don't know if that's carburetor specific or not, but I'm putting it in this video as well as a footnote so I can go back and watch it when I'm putting it back together. Next thing you want to do is take this out, and this is going to come out with this connector right here, and it's got a Phillips head screw right there, and that's universal. That's not from because this is a reman. That is how it is on the original carburetor as well. So pull that screw, and this whole unit here just lifts up on out. Alright, so now that I got that unit out, you got your well of gas right here. There's your bowl. There's a well for the accelerator pump. Now here's your needle and seat, right? Seat needle's down in there. Seat's right there on it. Here's a float, okay? So when the float's full, it should sit right there. See that? Now, here's where you get into the whole point of a carburetor kit. Carburetor kits will have a they'll have a float measuring tool. It's a little ruler with a couple of lines on it. They're paper, they're disposable. I threw mine away when I rebuilt my first carburetor, and I made that mistake because you're going to need one of those gauges when you do something like this. So what I did is I took a zip tie and I cut it in half, and I marked down my two lines. That line is 7/16 from the end here, and this line is 2 1/8 or something like that, and that's from here, this line to that line, that's the height of the air horn. So you can test your float level, see if it's correct, without even taking this apart, before you do take it apart. So what you want to do with this line right here is when your float is full of, when your fuel bowl is full of gas, the float is going to rise to a certain level, and that's about full right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to put it right here, right about, OEM floats have a little line to put it there, but this one doesn't. But you put it right about there, right about probably about a 1/4 inch away from the front of the float. So right about there. Right? I don't know if you can see that. Right about there. And this line is supposed to line up with the edge of your carburetor body right here. And if it doesn't, then you know it's the wrong height. So this is a 7/16. That's the spec for this. This float height I've already checked, and it is at 1/2. So that's 8/16. So it's 1/16 too low, which is 14%. Normally I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but my owner's manual says if the float height is, or my repair manual It says if the float height is 1/16 or more off, you have to adjust it. And since I've already ruled everything else out, that's what I'm going to be doing. So to take out the float, you just take this little arm right here and lift it straight on out of there. And what I just found, I'm going to put this on over here. What I just found is that the needle right there doesn't even have a hook on it. It's supposed to have a little cotter pin that hooks the needle onto the seat, which means this float isn't doing jack shit inside of here. So what I'm going to have to, either it fell off, which I don't see it down in there, so I don't think it fell off, or whoever did this did it wrong. And based on all the other mistakes I've discovered on this carburetor, I'm going to go with the latter option. So I'm going to pull that out of there, get it set up right, and then show you how to actually adjust the float on these.